And I remember to this day what the sermon was about. Because as an agnostic, and what I had believed through reading the Bible, that was salvation comes from God alone. This was my conclusion. That the Bible says this, Jesus says this, nature tells you this, reasoning tells you this, logic tells you this. That God created me, therefore He's the only one who can forgive me. And this is what I would say to those who I was debating with at the end of my stage of Christianity, was that God did not question Jesus when He created me. He did not ask His permission. He made me and put me in the womb of my mother. Therefore, why do I need to ask anyone to worship Him? Why do I need to ask anyone or in anybody's name to forgive me? It didn't make sense to me. It didn't. And I'm not here to bash anyone's faith. I'm not. I'm just trying to give you my story. How I got where I'm at. How I got from there to here. That's it. And I remember that he told me, the sermon was that the forgiveness, don't despair in the mercy of God. That the door of mercy is always open to anyone at any time. And he said, as long as you have not died and the day of judgment has not come, that you can always fall on your face in front of God and ask Him for His forgiveness, and He can forgive you. And He's the only one who could grant you paradise. Him and Him alone, no one else. And he even said that your good deeds, your actions alone cannot even get you there. If you do good all your life, he said, you cannot go to paradise just merited on that alone, because the price for paradise is too high. The exchange rate would be nil. All your deeds would just fall away as dust at the price of paradise. He said what will get you there is God's mercy, and that alone. And how do you obtain God's mercy? Obeying His commandments and asking for His forgiveness. That's it. He said that's the step manual. That's the process to get there. Deeds will not do it. So this to me was like, there's someone, like, you see, someone agrees with me. Somebody, I had to come to this mosque to find someone who agreed with me. These people who worship a moon god and bow to bucks in the desert, at least they got this right. So after this, they make prayer on Fridays. And so the Muslims started lining up in lines just like you're seated. And this really scared me because it looks, almost kind of like military lines. And I said, now they're coming to get me. They've gotten their little thing out of the way. And now it's time to get the good deeds, go get the American guy. So, but the guy told me, he came to me, I guess he saw my apprehension. He came, he said, no, we're going to pray. We're facing this way because this is the facing towards Mecca. And he explained to me really quickly that the Kaaba is not what we're worshiping, but it's a symbol of our unity. It's a symbol of the unity of God. It was the first house of God built by Abraham. And it's what Muslims still bow to all over the world. And we're bowing to God, we're just facing that direction. I said, okay, that makes sense. Okay, I'll take that. And when they started to make prayer, number one, the recitation of the Quran was the most beautiful melodic tone I have ever heard in my life. And I was a lover of music. Number two is when they started bowing and prostrating on the floor. The verses of the Bible rang in my head that this was the way the prophets prayed. This is the way the people of God prayed. So to speed it up, to get there in 2 minutes, I got a copy of the Quran. Because I asked them about the brief, what is your religion about? They told me God is one, we believe in prophets. They started naming names like Moses, David, Jesus. And I said, wait a minute, where'd you get those names? They're in the Quran. I said, okay, do you have a Quran? Can I have one? Because I believed that a religion was justified by its book. If your religion is true, it must be justified by its book. There must be something concrete, not just what you say or what this person does or what this person says. There must be something concrete that I can have passed down to me, that I can pass down to someone else, that validifies this religion, that validates it. So I asked them for a Quran. And when I started reading the Quran, in the first 2 chapters, I started getting to names that I remembered. I started reading the story of Moses, the story of David, the story of Jesus, the story of Harun, of Abraham. And what I realized that these stories were different than any story I've ever seen in the Bible. These taught that these people were at the highest echelon of the society. They were at the highest peak of morality. They were the people to be followed. They were the guiding example. Not only did they command the people to do good, they were the living example of it. And this to me was what made sense. This was what I was looking for. This was the people that I could follow. These were prophets. This was what I could call a prophet. So needless to say, I kept reading through the Quran, but I had given my heart to this book after the second or third chapter. I had said to myself that I don't care what this religion is, but if this is the book that justifies it, I want to be whatever these people are. And I want to be whatever this book tells me I need to be. And I would read in the book that it said that Allah has called us Muslims. So I said, I'm a Muslim. All alone in my room. I said, I'm a Muslim. And I went back to the mosque the next day. Three days later. I read the whole Quran from beginning to end in 3 days. And I went back to the mosque because I wanted to be a Muslim. And I knocked on the door and it was locked. Muslims only come to the mosque on Fridays in 1998, except on Fridays. So the guy at the gas station told me, he said, if you're looking for the Muslims, they'll be back on Friday. Alhamdulillah now, alhamdulillah, they have 5 salah a day in the masjid in Jackson. In Greenville, South Carolina. They have an Islamic school there. Alhamdulillah. Praise be to God. So I came back on Friday and I took my shahada. I said, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu Muhammad Rasulullah. I believe there's no God but Allah and that Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. Because when I learned about Muhammad, I said to myself that if God chose him to reveal this book, then he's a prophet. He has to be. This book, you don't pour water through a dirty pipe and get clean water at the other end. It doesn't happen. You don't get this pure of a book through a man that's not this pure. So I became a Muslim, and needless to say that the rest is history.